Well, welcome to another episode of Into the Woods with Trapping Girl. I am your host, Linda White, and I have Valerie Nies with me today. Some of you may have followed her on Facebook and Instagram. She is an excellent trapper, and I am super excited to have her on. So, welcome, Valerie.
Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're going to just dive right in because you're on your lunch break, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. But yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started. Some of the struggles you and I have already talked, but whenever you first started, there were a few struggles there. So, kind of dive in and tell us all about you.
Yeah, so I am one of three girls to my family. And growing up, I think my dad really hoped for little boys, and instead he got all little girls. And so even with that, he put his heart and soul into trying to teach us his ways as far as his tradition of hunting and fishing and the love of the outdoors. And so we were really quite exposed between both of my parents when we were young. Moving forward, getting married, my husband, he has a great love for the outdoors. Also, he focuses more of his time and love and enjoyment with bird hunting, dove, quail. Really grew up with his dad doing the same thing. I knew when we had kids, I wanted to raise them the same way as well. And so the girls absolutely love going out fishing. They like being outdoors and exploring and camping. My oldest daughter has had now the experience of going deer hunting. Abby, I have three girls myself, Abby, Paisley, and Ella, and they are 12, 9, and 5. So they enjoy coming with mom and dad. It wasn't until my husband and I decided to move kind of from the city out to more of the urban area. We really wanted to raise our girls in an area that was a little different. So we didn't want them having so much focus with screen time. We wanted to be able to have horses and chickens and different animals on the property without having a lot of different reservations as far as what different communities hold as far as HOAs. So we bought our little ranch, and so we have named it and deemed it and hung up the signs that say half-ass acre. It is definitely near and dear to our hearts. We
That's
chose our
awesome.
name because we were on like an acre and a quarter, and we have four little mini donkeys and one on the way, and two horses, and an upteen number of chickens, and we've had pigs and goats and all sorts of different things that we've been able to experience. So, and the girls are very involved. I had never really been involved when it came to predator hunting or trapping until we moved out to the area that we did. And it was interesting because our chickens, which we have hand raised all of our little baby chicks, and the girls are very well versed in making sure they look for pasty butt, looking and making sure that they stay healthy, feeding, watering, getting the eggs in the morning. They are very well connected to their chickens. And it was heartbreaking when we started losing. Just one would disappear and then another would disappear. And we thought maybe a hawk or an owl was getting our little baby chickens. And we didn't come to find out until one night, Ryan and I, it was close to Christmas time. We had our chicken coop that we feel like is predator proof. We had forgot to close the door. We were up late one night wrapping Christmas gifts and just totally forgot about it. And as opportunity presented itself, we had a bobcat come in and kill probably up to, I don't know, 20, 30 of our chickens all in one swoop that night.
Oh, wow.
And so it was devastating. Now, part of Arizona's law is we can protect our livestock, but we can't shoot a gun within a quarter mile of homes either. And so that's where my dad and I started having some further discussion when it came to trapping. And so we really didn't know a whole lot about it. I had never really heard anything about trapping. It's not something that's really well talked about in the community that I hang out with. But we have a family friend, Elliot Anderson, and he's a big predator hunter. He's got his own guide service here in Arizona and trapper himself. So he had talked to us about cage trapping. And so we looked into it. I started reading a ton about cage trapping. Dad had found some cages and we set our first trap together, hoping that we'd get this bobcat. And eventually we did. And it was like Christmas morning running out there when that door was down. It was a feeling of being hooked, line and sinker at the same point when we saw that door down. So I ran out there and I was so excited. I was shaking. I ran into the house. Couldn't wait to tell my husband, we got the Bobcat. We got the Bobcat. So Dad came over. We handled the Bobcat together. And that was the whole start of me wanting to trap even more and make this a hobby, and has created such a passion with my girls and family. So it wasn't, it came with its own, I guess, tribulations. Our game and fish, I know they're a busy operation here in Arizona, and calling down to the office, not always getting great answers or my questions answered in general. But I ended up setting a trap inappropriately, not knowing and not understanding some of our laws. And I thought I had a good understanding. And again, questions weren't being answered at the time. So I continued to do what I did as far as having one of my other traps out, had the rest of my traps completely in legal areas. But I had permission of our neighbors within a quarter mile to set a trap where I did, and not understanding it should have been a half a mile. So I came to find my trap on my trap check that night gone. And I had a game camera on it too, and that was gone. And I was just absolutely devastated because I know these things happen, but it happened to me. And that's a lot of money down the line when you look at cage trap and the cost of a game camera. And
Oh
this is
yeah.
me just getting going like late in the season, like February. I only, by the time I set my first trap and I practiced that depredation piece as far as on our property, I got my trapper's education class done. I got my license taken care of, and I was out setting traps and only have maybe 3 weeks of that season to really trap.
Hmm.
So it was down one trap, and it was missing for about a month until the neighbor had called, and I was out with the family checking the trap line, only a couple of cage traps out. And she says, I have a game and fish law enforcement officer at my house, and he has a picture of you on his cell phone. He's looking for you. He's walking over to your house. And I said, perfect, keep him there. I need to talk to him. I thought maybe he had information on my cage trap. And so, sure enough, I pull up, and, he's decked out. They have the bulletproof vests, and they have the sidearms and pretty intimidating stuff. And I come walking up, and he says, I'm Officer so and so, and do you know why I'm here? And I said, I have a pretty good idea. And my husband's walking up, and he asked my husband, are you Ryan Nies? And he says, yes. Sir, do you have any weapons on you? And he goes, well, I have a pocket knife. And he goes, well, you can just keep that in your pocket. And I had to laugh because at that point I thought, should I tell him I have a 9mm in my yoga pants? Like he didn't ask me, so maybe I don't matter. So anyways, this officer spent an incredible amount of time with me, talking and answering my questions and providing me an education as far as some of the trapping laws. And it was so eye-opening. And he gave me his card, told me if I had any questions anytime to make sure I reached out and contacted him. And so I feel like at this point he receives text messages from me, I feel like on a regular basis, just touching base with him, keeping him in the loop. And I love my relationship with him. And I was written a warning that day, and I am grateful for that warning because it just completely changed my point of view as far as my relationship with the game and fish and the support that they have for me as a trapper, and him wanting me to be successful as well. But it was, it was funny in our conversation, besides the 9mm comment that he had made, he had said, you know, I didn't, I had offered him my trapper's license and my information, and he's like, you're the trapper? And I said, well, yeah. And he thought it was my husband the whole time that had that cage trap out. He thought it was my husband's. And I said, no, it's mine. And he says, well, I didn't see this conversation going like it is. And I said, well, yeah. And he goes, well, it's not legal to shoot an animal within a quarter mile of these houses. And I said, yes, I understand that. He goes, well, then what did you do? And I said, well, I dispatched it according to what I think the guidelines are. And he goes, what do you mean by dispatched? And I said, well, I choked it down. And he just starts shaking his head and laughing. And I'll never forget that. He's like, I can't believe you did that as a woman. He says, it's tough enough for some men to do, let alone a woman. He's like, this is just, I did not see this conversation going like it did. So I just, again, I can't tell you how much I appreciate him. So moving even more forward, that was my first year of trapping. I ended up caging 8 cats that first year. And I didn't realize and didn't appreciate how exceptional that might have been for a first year trapper, only trapping for 3 weeks using cages,
That's awesome.
until I went to that first fur show. So it was then that I got really connected with two of my other mentors, Mercer Line from cagingbobcats.com and Trevor Hill from Briar Patch Cages, which I own both of these mentors' cages and some of their trapping supplies. I talk to them on a regular basis, gathering information. I can't tell you how many books and articles and people I cyber stalk online, Linda, Nikki, all of these amazing women and men on Facebook and Instagram, just trying to read and absorb as much as I can as far as how this works and trying to understand even more. So my girls are super active when it comes to trapping with mom. They look forward to coming out on the trap line with mom. My husband is not one that he is putting out traps by any means. He is not a trapper, but he supports the processes. And I laugh and joke with him frequently as far as, you know what, I'm out trapping, running the line. I expect the kids to be taken care of and my dinner hot and ready when I get home. And he does. He has it done and the laundry done and is just one of the best husbands and supporters of my trapping experience. So Linda, the second year last year, I ended up catching 30 cats. I killed 23 of those. So I had an exceptional year. My goal for this year was to kill 20 cats. And right now I've met my goal with still I think a little over a month to go in the season. So I'm
Oh,
excited
wow,
to
that's
see what this
awesome.
holds for me this year.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
So
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, and it's funny that you bring up your husband because when I had talked to you, a couple months ago, and you had said that Michael was sitting in the room with me, and I looked at him and I'm like, where's my dinner hot and ready? What the heck? So I just like you to know that your husband is exceptional when it comes to that. That's awesome. And that's actually one of the reasons why we're doing this on your lunch break, because you're going out and checking your traps tonight. So, I mean, you work a full-time job and then you're out checking traps and then you're taking care of the kids and everything else too. So it's you've worked this into your lifestyle. I mean, everybody's busy, but you've really worked this into your lifestyle and that's wonderful. Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, I think we're spread pretty thin during trapping season for sure. My kids are very patient and very tolerant along with the rest of the family. And, there's some things that suffer a little bit and I've had to let go of it. The laundry's not always done. The house isn't always clean, but you know what? It's going to happen. It's going to get clean eventually, I think maybe, or we'll just keep wearing what's in the laundry baskets when it is washed and just skip that whole process of folding and putting away. My husband had sent me a text message. He's like, we don't eat very good during trapping season. I'm like, baby, it's survival. It's all survival at this point, right? So I really do believe in my core that if it's something that's important to anybody, we're going to make time for it. And that's what we've done. We're going to make time for it. I might be up a little later these days, up a little earlier, but I'm going to make time for it because it's important to me and it's great for the family.
Oh yeah, and like I've followed you on Facebook and Instagram, and I mean the girls always seem to be out there with you any chance, any weekend that they can, or when they're off. And I mean those are wonderful survival skills that you're teaching them as well. I mean the world is crazy these days, so those are definitely great skills that you're teaching them. So I mean you had mentioned that you've only been at this for about 3 years now, right? This is your third year,
Correct. This
right?
is my third season, right?
So now there's a couple other things that are quite impressive, other than hitting goals with you for only being a trapper for 3 years. You're part of your association, you're out there teaching, all of those things as well, right?
I am. So I work full time as a nurse. That's my day job. And then I teach part time with the local university here. And then I am also Secretary of State for the Arizona Trappers Association. So it keeps us on our toes for sure.
Now, how did you get involved in all that? What was your thought about, I'm brand new and I'm just going to jump into my association and really be at every meeting and being involved. How did that all come about?
Yeah, our local trappers association is pretty small still. And it's been run by a group of guys that have really poured their hearts into maintaining this association, but they're all getting a little bit older. And I think a lot of the rumblings from some of the members was we needed some newer or fresher blood in the group. And so I was on the Facebook group for our ATA. I reached out to NTA. I'm on their group, on their internet page. I felt like it was part of my submersion with trying to learn and connect to other people that were like minded that I could learn with and be mentored with. And so I currently have our Arizona Trappers Association president, Ryan Trousdale. His mind is absolutely brilliant, not only on the business end, but he knows and understands trapping and probably the way that things are moving as well. And I really wanted him as a president. So I did nominate him, but he would only take my nomination if I would be his secretary. And I'm grateful that he challenged me with that because it provides myself the opportunity to connect even more to members of our trapping association and to continue to learn and grow. So I don't have a whole lot of time, but what I have is enough time to donate to help grow our association and continue to learn myself and hopefully bring in some of these younger people into the association. So my dad is not a huge supporter when it comes to social media. He feels like there's, a lot that shouldn't be put on social media because it can be very judged. And I completely understand and respect that. But I can tell you, I wouldn't have met some of the amazing people that I've met without the social media, yourself included. One of the kids that I did meet on social media, his mother, along with going to our local meetings, I mentored him. He's a kid outside of Tucson, and he is catching cats out of the wazoo and is doing an amazing job and has now started his own YouTube video. I have another gal that I connected through social media. Her dog ended up getting attacked and killed, unfortunately, by a
Oh, wow.
bobcat, and she's a long-term hunter fisher person too, and so needed to learn maybe a little bit about trapping, and now she's hooked. And so it has allowed me to help educate others in the means of trapping and really try to put the spotlight in a positive manner on trapping. It's just, I think there's a lot, especially right now with all these different movements, as far as trying to ban trapping and changing the laws when it comes to hunting predators and other species, that if I can at least provide that education piece to people and help them see what I'm doing, that's huge. And that Arizona Trappers Association is helping kind of guide some of that path there for me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. What would you say are some of the, let's see, struggles that outsiders, or myths that outsiders have about trapping, especially in Arizona? You have more of a cat population than we do out here in New York, and but what would you say are some kind of the myths that we struggle with that are attacking those laws that are out there in Arizona?
Yeah. One of the ones that I thought was interesting the other day, I ended up signing up for a couple of the different antis Zoom meetings that they were having. So it was the Humane Society and a couple of the other different organizations out there because I really wanted to gain perspective as far as their viewpoint and understand it as well. And I thought it was interesting because one of the things that the person had said was, a lot of times hunters or trappers will say that they don't target just one species as far as, predators go. But if you look at most people target one specific species. And when they talk about this is controlling the predator population and keeping them healthier as far as diseases and making sure it's, impacting the prey populations as well and helping with conservation, I had to kind of laugh because when I look at it in relation to my nursing career, and I'm sure other medical professionals would agree, I can't specialize in everything. I cannot be a neuro nurse. God forbid I'm ever a psych nurse, and God bless their hearts. I am not one of those nurses in a nursing home or all these other specialties. I know critical care medicine and I know rheumatology really well, and I specialize in those when it comes to my nursing background. I don't have a clue as far as how people trap so many coyotes. I look at, people holding up those $50 bills, $100 bills as far as their catches, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they've caught so many coyotes. It's amazing. And I feel like I am just that way with bobcats. I am trying so hard to learn and understand and target one specific species that I'm good at. I can't be good at everything, and I'm not trying to be good at everything, but I can at least make an impact with that one population. I think the other thing is, the other big fight is, well, you only use those animals for their pelts. You're looking for the white bellies and those, and you're just selling them. Well, yeah, I'm selling it, but I'm using it myself. We make certain things out of the fur. We use as much of that animal as I possibly can. My dogs eat a ton of bobcat meat. I think it's a great natural healthy diet for my dogs. As far as supplementing their dog food, I keep their urine, I keep their poop, I keep their glands, we keep their skulls. I keep just about every part of that animal. And yes, I do sell the pelt too. And when I look at it, and I remember listening to your first Trapping Girl session here, I remember you talking about when it comes to renewable resources and why we harvest these animals and why we make fur out of them. And that's exactly it. If I throw a piece of my fur in the dirt, it's going to decompose, which is great. But if I use faux fur, it takes forever. And so I think that's really important to remember, that we use these animals in an appropriate manner, and we use them and are respectful of the animal, using as much as we can, taking care of those animals as much as we can. I think the thing that I get a lot of feedback about is when I do post that end of the season picture and I have 20 or 30 cats hanging up on a wall, people are concerned that I'm killing too many, and re-educating and refocusing my friends as far as, okay, but we have a population currently in Arizona of about 67,000 bobcats. That's not including how many offspring that each of those cats are going to have moving forward. And it's interesting, on Facebook or social media, people in my community in general posting a ton of pictures of coyotes and bobcats on their from their Ring doorbells or cameras walking down the street. But yet in the same breath, they're also talking about, we're not seeing the same kind of clutches when it comes to dove or quail, or we haven't seen a ton of bunnies lately. And it's kind of like, there's a reason for that. And let me tell you why, and let me help you understand, just as far as balance goes. So I think that's probably a lot of it. The last thing I would say is, I get some flack as far as being in healthcare, somebody that saves lives as a nurse, but yet I take animals' lives and trying to help them understand why I do. All of my animals, I would say 90% of our animals on our ranch are all rescue animals. I have such a big heart for animals. But I have such a big heart for animals. I also want to make sure that I'm protecting those that can't protect themselves, like my chickens, like the deer and the elk population in Arizona. So that's why I do what I do.
Yeah, it definitely is important to keep a very healthy balance. And I always think it's funny whenever you hear people talk about, global warming and your carbon stamp and all of those things out there, but yet they're not looking at the renewable resources that we have around us. They want to put that plasticky pleather out there, and your fake furs and all of that, which just clogs up our landfills. We're
Right.
doing what God intended with these animals. Maybe not to the point that they thought, but we are. I mean, God said use the animals, and we're doing that. And because of us as humans wanting to grow and expand, we've kind of put them in the situation that they're in.
Right. I couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
That's well, I'm glad that you do. sometimes sometimes it's
Yeah.
funny because
Yeah.
I talk to certain people, and just like you had said about, if if we didn't have the cat population that we didn't, we would have a better bird population, or your bunnies and everything else. And it's the same thing out here in New York. We have a huge fox population where I am compared to anything else. We do have coyotes. We do have, other animals as well. But between the fox and the beaver, that's really what our population is here. And you know, just where I live, people will be asking me like, "Well, why don't why don't we have the turkeys that we used to have or whatnot? And that's exactly why, you know, those fox, they eat those eggs and everything else. So, you know, I totally agree with you on that one. You know, we've got to
Yep.
learn how to help that balance, you know, not overtake, but at the same time, you know, we need to give back to those other animals, like you said, that are struggling. Definitely.
Right. Absolutely. And I think a lot of it, when I looked at, Game and Fish's data, I have to believe in their science and their measures. When I talk to people and they're seeing these different animal populations out there all the time, that speaks to the heart as far as the volume of the surplus of populations that we potentially have. And we look at that data and we look at that information, and it's hard when I listen to the antis when they start talking about a lot more of these heartfelt kind of comments, and that part's frustrating because I think we all can base a lot of things just purely on opinion, but there has to be some common ground to things, and I have to believe in the science when it comes to things. It was one of their comments, and Linda, I had to laugh because they had said, when it comes to the Arizona Game and Fish guidelines, they talk about harvesting an animal and how absolutely distasteful that word is, harvesting, as if it's an ear of corn out in a field. And I thought, oh, good Lord, lady, if you would hear what we call patients when they die, when a human being dies in a hospital, we call it expired, like a vegetable or a can of or a jar of sour cream in the fridge. What do you think of that? It's human life and it's expired. So,
Oh.
I wish we could come to common ground with the aunties. I wish there was, a better way to explain, but I don't know if we'll ever gain that perspective from their end.
Now, so we're gonna kind of take a little bit of a step over. Before you were a trapper, you used to hunt big game, correct? And you still do, right?
I I do, yes.
So now, and I ask this because I've talked to so many women out there and men too that maybe have never trapped, and some have a not so nice view on trapping. You know, they're hunters, but yet they look at trapping a little differently. And did you ever fall into that category? But before, I mean, when you were hunting, you know, did you ever think a little less of trappers? Was it just because you didn't understand, or was it never on your radar?
Yeah, I love big game hunting, and I love it because I get to do it with my dad. And even now, I have no clue. Like, he takes me under his wing and we get to go out and we get to spend great father and daughter time. But I mean, we would go out there. If we saw a coyote, we would shoot it. I mean, it didn't even, second guess anything with it. But I had never, up until the time that my dad brought it up, even heard about trapping. It is not on the forefront of any of the game and fish, website information or social media things. I had no clue about trapping and how important trapping was. And then talking to some of these guys with the Arizona Trappers Association, and then starting to look online, I wasn't sure exactly what to think of it all, because I see those body grips and I see the leg holds and I see, the cage traps, and not understanding, you see a lot of perspective as far as other opinion goes, as far as, the three-legged animal running around there. But then you start looking at the other side from people that are actually using these devices, yourself included. You posted a picture not too long ago where you had your fingers pinched in a leg hold. There's guys up there setting off leg holds in their hand, and they're like, this is it. Like, it doesn't hurt, guys. Like, it's holding on just as if a ring would hold on to your finger. And I think, depending on where information is coming from, it definitely puts a bad light on what trapping is. And I think it impacts me when I'm out even trapping. If there's a car coming, like, I might hunker down under a bush just because I want to keep such a low profile. And I know there's other people that want to be out there and exposing themselves and talking to people and putting it into the light. But I feel like it has to be the right time and the right situation too, because I don't want to put it in a bad light either.
Right. No, I totally agree. I totally agree. So, yeah, and it's funny because, you know, myself included, you know, when I use those footholds, do I want to get my fingers cut? No, but normally the reason why is because I've got it like that picture where my gloves were stuck, they're off on the side or they're all over the place, and I'm caught in a position that shouldn't have ever happened and an animal would never be in. But that's more because I'm a klutz than anything else. So, but yeah, I mean, so you're using all cage traps, and I know we talked before. You thought maybe you would venture into the footholds, but it sounds like you haven't done that yet. What are some of the struggles you have? I mean, those cage traps. I went with a friend in Nebraska trapping this last week, and I'm gonna say those cage traps are not light at all. So that's got to be a
Yeah.
struggle as a woman. I mean, you don't. I've never seen you in person, but you seem about my height and my size, so I struggle.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think it's hard even for some of the guys out there. I mean, I try to make things as easy on myself as possible. So I don't carry a bucket with all my lures. I carry a backpack, like a duck bag. That seems to work out well for me. But those cage traps, I end up putting like a bike lock inside of the top and wear it as a purse or strap it to where it's like kind of behind me and carry it that way. I carry one cage out at a time. And if I'm carrying it down a mile, then I might have to take a break here and there. And I have my loppers and a shovel and all that stuff it's a lot to take it out there. I would like to say I'm in better shape for it, but I also love to eat a lot. And so I'm 5'7 3/4" and about 170 pounds. So I work hard, but I run with a small line. I wish I had the time to put out a longer line, but I run with, right now I have 8 cage traps. And out of those 8 cage traps, I pulled 2 the other day. So I'm at 6 right now. So I don't have a long line by any means.
Yeah, no, and the thing is like you're saying though, you're walking a mile or so in on some of these places. So, I mean, even the fact that you don't have a long line, it's definitely time consuming, I would assume, especially if you catch anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So typically I would leave my office right now at about 4:30, hopefully in the afternoon if it's a good day. And then right after work, I am putting on my boots and a jacket, grabbing my backpack, and we drive down to the first area and usually don't get home until, gosh, usually on average about 8 or 9 o'clock at night, depending on if we have any catches or not. So, it's by the time I get home and I take care of any animals, put them up on boards, it's not uncommon to be in bed about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning some nights, depending on how how blessed I've been for the day or not. So it can get a little bit overwhelming as far as being maybe a little sleep deprived. And I feel like my body is pretty exhausted these days. But after the season's done, man, I am ready to just get back out there again for the next year.
So I've got to ask. I mean, I probably already know this answer, but most people don't. So it's time consuming. You're sleep deprived. They're heavy cages. You're walking a lot. Your relationships, I'm sure, during trapping season, I know mine do, they suffer a little bit. You're not out doing all the things with your friends, and they have to be checked daily, your traps. So why do you keep doing this? I mean, seriously, like, a lot of people, I'm sure they're saying, like, well, what's the what's the good side of this? Because it sounds like a lot of work and kind of stressful and tiring.
Yeah, I do it for a couple of reasons. One, just my personal enjoyment. I love seeing a door down. I absolutely love looking at those bobcats. There is no prettier animal in my book than those darn bobcats. I mean, I love their growling and their snarling, and I love seeing what's in that trap. I do it for my girls. I can't even tell you how much enjoyment and pleasure it is to watch them with me running up to a trap. And we've had to work on that a little bit, as far as we got to walk because last year, of course, they ran up right to a skunk. And so thank God it didn't spray at them. But, that was a lesson learned. We don't run, but I want to teach them the values and the love that I have of the outdoors. I want to teach them the conservation. I want to make sure that maybe there's a third thing. I want to make sure that I'm growing a healthy animal population and be involved in this process and not just somebody that's standing by the sidelines talking about what I should be doing or what we should be doing. I want a piece of that process as well.
Yes, yes, that's a great answer. I love hearing
Now,
that.
if if you ask my husband, I think he would probably prefer this time of year that I actually invest in some sort of perfume and not lather somehow in skunk every day. I had a text message from Mercer last night. I asked him, I said, "Hey, is it too late to get a little bit more skunk scent?" And he's like, "What are you doing? Eating that stuff?" And I'm like, "No, but I'm pretty sure my husband thinks I'm using it as perfume." Because I just inevitably I will get it in my hair or on my clothes or lure of some sort. And I think it's rough. I mean, people in the parking lot, even right now, I don't have people that park by me because my truck is permeating and smells. I mean, it's a rough time of year, I think, for everybody I work with, everybody that I'm around. And you're absolutely right. Relationships, some of them take a back seat.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So, do you ever like have clients at the hospital and stuff come in and be like, "What is that smell?" Or you at least get it out of your hair enough?
Usually I could cover it up pretty well. And I maybe my hygiene's an issue altogether. I don't know. Like I'm so tired. I have hair wash day once a week right now, twice a week if it's really bad. So far I haven't had any feedback. Every once in a while I'll look at my nurse friend and I'm like, "Hey, is everything okay? Like, do you smell anything?" And she's like, "No, no, you're good." I'm like, "Okay, all right. I'm putting off the hair wash one more day then." So
That's
far
too
so good.
funny. I had a lady once. I walked into Walmart and we're in line and this lady's looking at me and she's like, "Did you hit a skunk?" And I was like, "No, I don't smell anything. I don't know what you're talking about." And this lady like legit thought she was like losing it. She was like, "Oh,
Oh,
maybe that's not what I smell. I don't know what I," and she's like looking around under things. She's spraying Lysol
oh,
like on the belt and
oh
everything. Oh my gosh, it was
no.
too funny. It was too funny. So I was just
No,
like,
if you ask my husband, he's waiting for the day that I get pulled over because he swears the back of my truck smells like really bad, like weed, marijuana.
"Oh."
And I'm like, "Really? That's what you're getting from it?" I'm like, "I don't know." And he's like, "Trust me, I've gotten feedback." Okay, well, I guess that could be explained easily.
Right? That's too funny. That's too funny. So, this is a question that somebody had asked me over this last week. And you know what? I thought I would ask those who are on the podcast what their answer would be to this. So the way laws and everything are going these days, we have a lot of restrictions that are out there. Um, they're trying to ban footholds or they're trying to ban, trapping on public land and so on and so on and so on. And if you were to be in front of, say, a board or legislature or anywhere, and they asked you what would be a good happy medium, a good way to solve everybody's problems, what do you have an answer? What would your answer be to that? Do you think that there's a way that maybe some of these laws that we have now, or even courses that are out there, something to benefit everybody? Maybe put trapping in a better light. Is there something that we're not doing that we should be doing? Or even like as an outsider, something that we should be inviting outsiders to? Or is there some way that we can kind of mesh everybody into, I guess, a better understanding so that, either change laws or change regulations or invite, or, what is a way to make this a happy medium? Sorry, that was a really
Yeah.
long way of asking that question.
No, I think this is a great question, and I can't wait to hear others' responses to this question because I have the same question myself. I want to hear the answer to this. I will speak to my state. So Arizona lost trapping as far as with footholds before I became a trapper. So when it comes to trapping, we can trap on public land using cage traps only. Now, if it is private land, you can use, with permission, you can use on private land then footholds or other means or devices. If practicing depredation, you can take any means necessary to depredate. um, within reason, of course. So I have never known footholds because of just that reason, needing to be on private land. So caging bobcats is a lot easier putting a cat in a cage than it is with a coyote. You know, cats lunge forward, dogs move back, or canines move back. I would say that we've already met that happy medium. You know, when we talk about the antis, they want to get rid of trapping altogether. Well, that's not a happy medium by any means. But now we've lost our footholds and we're only to cage traps. When we look at the other thing that a lot of times they talk about is, you know, making sure that those animals are taken care of. You know, you compare something to like Nevada, where they have, I believe, 3-day trap checks compared to Arizona. Well, we're at once a day. We have to check our traps every 24 hours. So we're meeting that. When it comes to, I think some of the other things that I would really want to bring to light is, just like myself, I never grew up knowing anything about trapping. We had no clue, and there's a reason for that. I think, and if I had the perfect picture, which I know a lot of parents would probably not appreciate, but I think we need to bring some of this back to the schools and start with education in the schools as far as why we do what we do. And maybe not the schools completely. Maybe it lies more with Game and Fish and making sure that we promote and put more positive light on it. Because if we don't start to educate, if we don't start to put it out there as far as what we do, why we do, and the process of doing it, we're never going to get people to understand. So I think putting it out there more too. I don't know. I don't know if that answers the question completely, but at least perspective from Arizona, that's where I see things at.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. You had said earlier about how your father, is not a big fan of social media and Facebook because um, he feels that it could get us into trouble or, just things are taken out of content. And I was a couple years ago, I was victim to PETA. I had a picture of, I think it was a fox, maybe it was a coyote. But I had a picture that, I mean, literally was pinned at the top of this anti page. And oh my gosh, it circulated everywhere. And I got death threats and everything else in the world from that. But, the one thing that did come out of that was there was a woman who messaged me and I could have easily, her first comment to me was definitely not a nice one. And I could have, taken the way of either, saying something rude and nasty back or ignoring her altogether. And instead, I took it from the prospect of like, well, why is she even writing this? You know? And at this point, I had quite a few other people message me, so I was pretty beaten down. So it would have been easy to be very nasty to her back. But I felt like that was kind of playing into her thought already of us trappers. So I had asked her, I said, why do you think this way? And it was kind of like your phone call, that meeting that you had with the anti group, the Humane Society, where they have little pieces, and they're kind of filling in around those pieces. So actually, I still talk to that woman today every now and then. She follows me, my trapping on Facebook now. And she'll make little comments every now and then, like, "Oh, that looks like a good one, Linda," or something, because it's so funny. It is whenever she messages me or comments, it's so funny because I'm thinking like 2 years ago, the comment would not have been the same. It would have not been the same. But it was something good that had came out of it. And I agree with you. I think, just putting things out there maybe more in a positive light, social media can really help us, as long as you're, paying attention to what you're putting out there. I talked about on my first podcast, unfortunately, sometimes things do happen, um, and that is unfortunate. But none of us are in the business of catching feet or catching, damaged animals or anything like that's not what we're trying to do. We don't want to hurt the animal, obviously before dispatching it, but that's not the plan there. And you had even said, some of your cats that you're getting, you're letting go. You're you're only dispatching certain ones. So, that's definitely something I feel like that needs to be put out there more. That we do let some of these animals go totally unharmed. That there's, especially
Right.
with cages, that's probably honestly the best way to catch an animal that is totally unharmed. When you have footholds, um, every now and then I get a damaged foot, but normally it's because a swivel didn't work right or something, that it was unforeseeable that would happen. So, I mean, 9 times out of 10, I can let a fox, I can even let, something as small as a possum and whatnot let go when unharmed, totally unharmed. So I think that
Right.
definitely is something that needs to be put out there in a better light. And I fully agree with you. And honestly, I gotta say, um, when I follow you on social media, I really truly feel that you do that you try to shine that positive light. So good job. You're doing a great job. I always love following you. We're coming near
Oh,
the end of our hour, and I know that you're on your lunch, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But last question for you before we close up here. If you could give advice to somebody out there who, they've heard this and they thought, maybe I want to try this, cage trapping or maybe even footholds or, depending on what area they're in, I want to try that. What is the advice that you would give as a brand new trapper or somebody who's a little interested in learning more? What kind of advice would you give them?
yeah. I absolutely think if you have an opportunity to have a mentor, get a mentor, somebody that can show you the ropes a little bit. That way you have a connection to other people, organizations. You have an opportunity to ask questions to somebody directly. Read as much as you possibly can, watch videos. You may not learn anything from, reading 2 or 3 different trapping books, but you'll probably pull out just a little bit of information out of each little piece that you tap into, and you can make that your own. And I would say, don't give up. I think you have to have a good amount of patience and perseverance and overall grit when it comes to this sport. It is not for the weak. I watch people like you trapping in the snow and the ice, and I'm sitting in Arizona where it's freezing in the 60s, upper 60s, 70s today. And you have to adapt, you have to learn, and you need to take the time to do so. It's not going to be a sprint when it comes to this sport. At least it hasn't been for me. It's a marathon. I am learning stuff in my 3rd year, and I'm going to continue to learn. I had follow a guy myself on Facebook, and he is trapping this year, and he's caught 72 cats in cages this year. And I think he
Wow.
says his personal best is 81. And he's going to break that record without a doubt this year. And I look at him, I'm like, I need to learn from him. I need to talk to him. What's he doing different? Now, granted, he's working a line of 125 miles, and he's, also running 30 or 40 cages. But what is he doing? What's something I can learn from him? So making sure that you're tapping into those resources. And then I would try to find somebody at your local game and fish office, an officer that can give you and provide those answers to you. I can't even tell you what a resource my officer has been for me. It's just been huge. And then make sure that you have, if you don't have a mentor, make sure you have some sort of support system, a buddy. I look at it as my husband, my girls, my mom and dad, my sisters. They are so tolerant of me. And when I'm having a bad day and maybe a bad week or two, and I haven't caught anything, and I'm feeling like, what's going on? What am I doing wrong? They are there to lift me up and support me again. So have a buddy, whether it's trapping or not, just to make sure they can support you, because it's physically and mentally challenging, and we need to stay strong and stay mentally healthy.
I agree. I definitely agree. And I'd like to let you know that when I am trapping in the ice and snow, I do turn into your pages where you're not trapping in the ice and snow. And I'm like, oh, I wish I was hanging out with Val today.
Oh, I don't know if I could trap. I don't know if I could hang with you guys. You guys are tough gals.
Oh, it was funny because when I was in Nebraska, like so Nikki's weather out there, it's constantly changing. Like one day you've got so much wind that you think it's gonna blow you away because it's so open out there. And the next day it's nice and warm and then it's freezing. And I've got to say, like, I thought that was almost more challenging than here where whenever it gets cold, it normally gets cold. Now this year it's been a little weird, but normally like when when it's time for winter, it's time for winter, and you kind of adapt after a while. Like the snow insulates everything, so it's like a big, nice, warm blanket. So it's not that bad. But I gotta say, she out there has got it's weather 24 hours a day, just change it up.
Right?
So
I have no reason to whine here. No reason.
no, no, you don't. I want to make sure you know that you don't. Well, I
Oh,
appreciate you taking the time, taking your lunch to sit and chat with us. So, if anybody wanted to reach out to you, hear maybe a little bit more about you, or maybe even have you as a mentor, what are some of the ways that they could find you?
yeah. So I'm on Facebook just under my name, Valerie Nies. I'm on social media, Instagram. They are more than welcome to contact me. My name on there is Trapper Mama. Um, they are more than welcome to email me. I'm happy to provide, you my email address. They can email anytime, or even just a text or a call. I'm always happy when I get somebody that is interested and wants to talk to me. If I can help somebody else, I am so open to helping anybody that has questions and wants to learn.
Thank you. I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much again for having me. I always feel like, and I've said this before, it's like talking to a celebrity because I look at you as one of those women that are just amazing. You and Nikki and all the other gals on there. I don't even know the one gal, B.A. Kuhnberger. I know
Oh,
she's
Beth.
an ED physician somewhere. I think it's Beth,
Yep.
but I only know her as B.A. Kuhnberger on her Facebook page. And I look at her, you guys are amazing. And I'm so glad that I have been able to connect to you guys. So it's definitely like talking to you like a movie star.
My husband would disagree, but I appreciate that. Well, you have a great day, and I truly appreciate you being with us. Well, that concludes another episode of Into the Woods with Trapping Girl. I hope you enjoyed listening to Valerie as much as I enjoyed talking to her. If you have any questions for Val or for myself, please email me at questionsfortg@gmail.com. We always appreciate any kind of feedback or interest that you would have in learning more about our guest or myself. I'd also like to thank my sponsors, which is Sawmill Creek Baits and Lures, Trapping Girl Inc., Barnes Hide and Fur, and Romero Fine Arts. Thank you again for all your support. Have a great day.